Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Maker Stage. Let's keep it moving here. I'm so excited to introduce our next speakers, Joe, Ma, and Jessica Oyang. Joe and Jessica are the co-founders of Ditto, and they're here to show you how to build a content system that actually keeps up with the pace of shipping. That means copy generated from your guidelines so things stay consistent, on brand, and compliant. Please give a warm welcome to Joe and Jessica.
All right. Hey, everyone. I'm Jess, and this is Joe. We're the co-founders of Ditto, a tool that helps teams manage their product copy from draft to design all the way to deploy. And we both got our own starts as designers and developers ourselves. Today, we want to talk about how to build a system that keeps copy reliable, consistent, and improves over time, especially as AI changes the speed and scale of how products are built.
How products get shipped has changed. The old model was never perfectly linear, but there were clearer handoffs. Someone would write a spec, designs would be created and refined, then handed off to someone, an engineer, to build. With AI, that process has been collapsed. Teams can now take a feature from idea to production off the real code base incredibly quickly, often bypassing the stages and checks that previously governed the process. And that includes copy. Every pull request someone on your team opens up can contain copy, and AI can now draft that copy for an entire feature in seconds. And that is really useful and really powerful. But it also creates new challenges. When more copy is getting created in more places by more people and agents, it becomes harder to make sure the product is still speaking consistently and accurately. That the way you describe a new feature in one place matches the way you describe it in another place. That users can understand what to do in the moment and what to do next. That things that are localized in a way that actually makes sense for that market.
And in that way, words aren't getting any less important. With AI, products are getting more complex and changing faster. A feature can have new capabilities, limits, or a different flow from one week to the next, and the language around it has to keep up. As the features themselves get easier to build, more of what sets a product apart is how it talks, how a product explains itself, guides users, and earns their trust. So the question has never been, can AI help us write copy? It can. But rather, how do we keep all of it right? Consistent, accurate, on brand, across the whole product at the speed that it's now being created. Because at this volume, getting it wrong has real consequences. Our answer is that you need a system for product copy, just like you need a design system for UI. A proper design system gives both people and agents a shared way to understand, find, and reuse the right components instead of rebuilding them from scratch, so teams can move faster while still meeting the brand and quality standards that matter. A content design system does the same thing for language. AI creates more product language. A content system keeps it correct. So then, what do we actually mean by a content system? It's the single source for how your product talks, where your terminology, your patterns, your approved language all live, so everyone on your team and every agent can pull from the same place. And for it to be effective, we found it needs to do three things. One, it's built from what's already live. Two, it governs language everywhere work happens, not just where it's generated. And three, it shows you what's working and what needs to change. There's a lot underneath each of those pieces. Getting beyond a style guide means building enough context into the system for people and agents to actually use it well. For the rest of this talk, we're going to show you what that looks like in practice with Ditto. The first thing an effective content system needs is to be built from what's already live. AI is only as good as the context it has. To generate strong product copy, AI needs more than guidance on tone and style. It needs to know what your product does, what you call things, and how that language is actually used. Your code base has all of this language already, but scattered across files with no structure to it. It's the raw material. The system is what you build from it, a structured model of your product language, the terms you use, the patterns that repeat, the language worth reusing. So the production code base, what's live and users are already using, should be the starting point for building an effective content system. So how do you actually do that in practice? Let's take a look.
So this is Ditto Pay, a small finance app for money transfers. And like most real products, it's already got a lot of language scattered across it. And we want to use and reference that. So I'm going to run this tool that Ditto has called Scan. And what that's going to do is read through our code base, extract the strings we've shipped, and build a first content system from that. So you can see it finished extracting here. I'm going to open up this link. And it looks like Ditto found 99 strings in our product, 91 unique, 8 repeated across 2 languages. And Ditto's going to ask if we want to provide any more context before it generates the first version of the system, which I'll give it. I'll just say this is a finance app and let it do its thing. And after a bit of loading, Ditto now presents us with our system. It took all of that raw information from the code base. It tagged it, organized it, pulled out relationships, turning into this really rich model of our product language. And we're not done yet. I now get to leave feedback and shape it from here. So let me go ahead and tweak the tagging. I want it to actually tag items by UI element. I'm going to let that work. And then now you can see it went ahead and updated that. And then maybe I'll scroll through the rest and let Ditto know that it looks good. Go ahead and finish at the very end and create it. And now in Ditto, we've got the strings from our product organized and tagged with the context around it in what we call the component library in Ditto. And because Ditto detected 2 languages in the code base, we were also able to bring in the Spanish translations automatically. So all of the strings in our code base are now something I can directly search, edit, and reuse. And then here, Ditto's taking one more step, drafting a style guide based on all of this rich information. You can see that the inferred style guide here is a full one, pulled from how our product actually talks. And again, if I wanted to provide feedback to keep shaping it, I could. So in just a few minutes, starting from what's already live, we've now got a full starting point for a content system. Let's go back and talk about where it goes from here.
So now we have a system set up to start, both strings and guidance accurate to the live product. But for it to actually keep language consistent and high quality, it has to govern where work is actually happening, whether that's in Figma, Claude Code, pull requests, agents, or anywhere else. It has to be portable. It has to govern and adapt to everywhere work actually happens, because language does not stop at generation. It keeps getting refined, translated, reviewed, shipped, and changed throughout the product building process. So your system has to be there, guiding the writing for all of it. Across all of these stages, your team is working from a lot of individual tools and services. Without a living system that connects that context across stages, you're left trying to keep separate copies of the same guidance in sync. A markdown file in one tool, an agent in another. They may all start from the same guidance, but keeping them current requires manual reconciliation. An effective content system stays connected to one shared source. So when your team updates a term, adds a reusable pattern, or changes a rule, that decision can be carried into the other places where work is happening, instead of having to be recreated or maintained separately. But showing up in many places is not enough on its own. An effective system should be able to shape and deliver that context in the best form for the place it's being used. A designer in Figma needs context shaped and structured in one way. An agent building a feature from the code base needs it another. Someone reviewing a pull request, another still. Take agents, for example. The instinct is to hand them everything you know, but more context isn't necessarily better context. Give an agent the whole system and it has to figure out what applies. Agents do better when they're given exactly what it needs for the task in front of it and ends up making fewer one-off calls, follows the rules more consistently, and wastes less context and fewer tokens. Let's see what this looks like in practice.
So earlier, we built that first version of our content system for our DPay product. Now let us put it to work in a few places. First up is Figma. Say that I'm redesigning the onboarding flow for our DPay app. I'm working on both the web and the desktop mockups and setting up an onboarding flow where I ask users for their first name, last name, etc. I'm opening up Ditto's plugin, which has access to our content system and the actual screens themselves, so it understands the context. And as I work, Ditto is going to check my copy against our system right in Figma and surface any inconsistencies. So here I have this success state message at the end of an onboarding flow, and it's surfacing that probably want to change the terminology because our preferred is live instead of active. So I went ahead and accepted that, and it got applied right here in the design. So that's Figma. Now let's see how our same system functions in code. I could hand our agent a whole style guide, but then it would have to sift through the whole thing to figure out what applies where and where things get unreliable. So instead, I'm running another tool in our code base, which is this pull command. And this tool is going to embed our content system directly in the code, right next to the design system components they apply to. Take this callout component as an example here. I have a bunch of files, 3, that define how to build this component visually. Ditto has then added this other file, which defines how the copy inside that component should be written, with relevant rules, text layers that exist inside it, relevant content patterns. So now the design system and our content system are living side by side. And when an agent builds a feature with this component, it doesn't have to search a giant file for what's relevant. So now let's actually build something with all of this. I'm going to use Claude Code. So I'm going to add support for international transfers to DPay. So I'm going to enter this prompt in. It's going to take a second to build. I'm going to fast forward a bit. I ran this session ahead of time, so we wouldn't have to wait here. It's going to do its thing with some fun copy. And then eventually, we will get to the output. And because our content system was right there in the code, Claude Code was able to pick up exactly what it needed. It adhered to these guidelines from our content system, things like structure and currency in a certain way. And then it also was able to reuse 6 text components right from our library, instead of rewriting those from scratch. And now you can see that finished feature in our product here, with the tabs now for domestic, for international, and all that copy consistent. So that is Claude Code. Last thing I want to do is show you one more place where our system can be put into action, which is a pull request. Here's a PR for adding a confirmation page to DPay. When the PR got opened, the Ditto PR bot automatically ran through and checked all the copy it found against our content system, and then left comments and suggestions for any inconsistencies it found. You can see it found a bunch of things. For example, instead of saying something like purchase complete, it should say something else. Or, for example, your payment was processed successfully, we should use that instead of rewriting it in a slightly different way and creating a new variant for no reason. And all of this happened in GitHub at the point of PR review, right before this code is actually merged and shipped to production. So we just saw 3 places our system can govern work: Figma, the code base, a pull request. In this case, Figma and the code base at the point of generation, and the pull request after that. So one source of truth everywhere the work happens. But we are not done yet. Let's move on to the very last piece of an effective content system.
So the system's built and it's everywhere your team actually works, but we still have a question mark around how well is it actually working? And that's the challenge with a lot of AI tooling today. It's easier than ever to spin up an agent, a workflow, or a set of rules that looks useful. The hard part is, though, proving it actually works, keeping it working at scale, and keeping it current as your product changes. An effective content system has to make that visible. It should show you which rules are getting used, where the words in your product are being reused, where the system is performing well and getting used often, and where things are underperforming. And only once you have that visibility, you can act on it, improve it, and have that true feedback loop. Decisions, feedback, and context made in one place should flow back into the system, so everyone or every agent working elsewhere has the latest updates to your living system. And thus, your system improves over time. Let's see what that looks like.
Awesome. So here I am in Figma again. And one of the ways Ditto supports this visibility is by giving the option to provide feedback on suggestions. So for example, I'm getting this suggestion to use contractions in this message. And in this case, I actually don't want to do that because it's consent language, it's more serious. So I'll go ahead and reject it. And in Ditto, I'll let it know, hey, don't use contractions for consent language. And then I can send that off, and Ditto is going to take that in and use that to improve the system. And all of that feedback is going to build up over time as everybody across the team is providing it. So here I am back in Ditto. I'm looking at a style guide, and I can now see a bigger picture around how this guide is doing. I can see how often rules are attributed, used, and accepted and rejected. And that allows me to actually take action on it and improve it. So what's cool is that I could make an edit here. So maybe instead of live being our preferred term, I actually want to reverse it and say it's now active, the opposite of what I did earlier. And I can make that change. And because it's all one connected system, that term change is immediately enforced and governed everywhere. And I'll show an example of this in Figma. You can see that immediately, that same text that I was working on before now has the updated rule and can apply that directly. And this same update is available everywhere else immediately as well, across Claude Code, pull requests, any other tool that you might be using. And the idea is that you're not shipping a system once and hoping it works. You can actually see how it's doing, fix what isn't working, and any changes go live everywhere the moment that you make them. And the system gets better and better the more your team uses it. So let's go back and summarize all this.
Awesome. So that's what we've seen effective content systems to look like. It's built from what's already live. It governs everywhere work happens, not just where it's generated. It shows you what's working and what needs to change. What we've seen is that AI made it easy to generate more language than ever. But the teams that do this well won't be the ones generating the most. They'll be the ones with a system underneath, keeping all of it right.
So that's it. This is obviously what we're building at Ditto, and a lot more not shown here. And we love chatting about it. So if you want to learn more or just want to chat all things content systems, please find us at our booth in the sponsors area or check out dittowords.com. Thank you.